Get on the ground! Do it now! Keep your hands where I can see them!
The white officer hit the black teen until he saw the badge around his neck. "Get your hands where I can see 'em." The shout came sharp, slicing through the cold night air. Red and blue lights flashed against the cracked walls of the old alley. Malik froze, palms open, eyes wide, the flashlight beam blinding him. "I didn't do anything," he shouted back. The white officer stepped closer, hand already on his gun. "Don't move, boy." That word hit harder than the shove that followed. Malik stumbled against the wall, pain running up his arm as the officer grabbed his hoodie. "Please," Malik gasped. "I'm just walking home." The officer slammed him against the brick again. "You fit the description." Rain started to fall. Soft at first, then steady, turning the ground slick beneath Malik's sneakers. He could hear his heart pounding louder than the siren still echoing down the street. "You think you can just walk around this neighborhood like you own it?" The cop growled, Malik's voice trembled. "I live here." That made the officer laugh, cold, cruel. "Sure you do." He reached for Malik's pocket. Malik panicked, twisting away. "Don't!" he cried. The cop shoved him again, hard. "Don't you tell me what to do." The rain hit harder now. The light glared off the silver chain around Malik's neck, a small badge-shaped pendant glinting under the flashing lights. The officer froze. "What is that?" Malik's breath came fast. "It's my dad's, don't touch it." But the officer did. He grabbed it, squinting at the engraved letters through the rain. Detective Marcus Hayes, 22 years of service. For a split second, the world went silent. The officer blinked, his hand trembling. "Where did you get this?" Malik's voice cracked. "From my father," he said. "He was a cop. Before he was killed on duty." The words hit the officer like a punch. His grip loosened. The rain kept falling. And for the first time that night, guilt started to drown out the noise of authority. "What did you just say?" The officer's voice wasn't loud anymore. Rain dripped from the brim of his hat, washing down his face like sweat. Malik swallowed. "I said he was a cop. Detective Marcus Hayes. He's my dad." The officer stepped back a little, breathing hard. He looked down at the small badge again, the name cut deep into the metal, worn smooth at the edges from being touched too often. "Marcus Hayes," he murmured. "That name, I know that name." Malik didn't move. He was still pressed against the wall, his arms shaking. Every instinct told him not to trust the man in front of him. The officer's flashlight wavered, landing on Malik's face. For the first time, the light wasn't a weapon. It was recognition. "Your dad," he said slowly. "He worked the North Precinct, didn't he?" Malik nodded. "He died there 8 years ago. Traffic stop gone wrong." The officer lowered the beam, jaw tight. He trained me. He was my first partner." The words hit the space between them like thunder. Malik blinked. "You knew him?" The officer's voice cracked. "I did. He was the best cop I ever met. He used to tell me, 'Never let anger pull the trigger for you.'" The rain kept falling, slower now, softer. Malik stared at him, the anger in his chest fighting with confusion. "Then why'd you hit me?" The officer's mouth opened, then closed again. He looked at his own hands like they didn't belong to him. "Because I forgot who I was," he said. "And your father's probably looking down on me." Ashamed, silence. Just rain and breathing. Malik stepped forward, still cautious. "You think saying sorry fixes it?" he asked. The officer shook his head. "No. Nothing fixes what I did." He unclipped his badge, holding it out like a confession. "But if he was here, he'd tell me to own it." Malik looked at the badge, then at the man's eyes. They weren't hard anymore, just tired. He took the pendant from his neck, the tiny badge that once belonged to his father, and pressed it against the officer's. 2 pieces of metal, one name carved into both worlds. "Then start acting like the man he believed you could be," Malik said quietly. The officer blinked back tears, the rain hiding the rest. "Let me drive you home," the officer said quietly. Malik stared at him. "After what you did?" The man nodded. "It's the least I can do." For a moment, Malik wanted to walk away, to leave him standing there in the rain. But the memory of his father's voice, "Never let anger pull the trigger for you," held him still. So he nodded once. They walked to the cruiser in silence. The wipers beat slow against the windshield, slicing through the storm. The radio hissed static, a low hum filling the space between them. "You really were his partner?" Malik asked at last. The officer kept his eyes on the road. First one he ever had. Marcus was different. He listened before he judged. He said every badge meant service, not power. Malik stared out the window. Streetlights flashed across his face like old film reels. Memory, pain, and disbelief mixing together. "He died because another cop didn't listen," he said. The officer's grip on the wheel tightened. "I remember that night. We all heard it over the radio. I was off shift. I should have been there." Malik turned toward him. "You couldn't have changed it." He shook his head. "I could have backed him up. I could have stopped it before it happened. Instead, I'm out here doing exactly what he hated." The cruiser stopped at a red light. Rain streaked down the glass. For a second, the two badges on the dashboard, one old, one new, caught the same flash of lightning. "What happened to you?" Malik asked softly. The man exhaled. "Anger, fear, years of it. You wear the uniform long enough and forget the man inside it." The light turned green. They didn't move. Malik looked straight at him. "Then maybe this is how he reminded you." The officer met his gaze, the same dark eyes he remembered from Marcus. Something broke inside him. The wall he'd built out of years and pride started to crumble. "He'd be proud of you," he whispered. Malik shook his head. "He'd be disappointed in both of us." The car rolled forward again, tires cutting through puddles. Neither spoke, but for the first time that night the silence didn't feel like war. It felt like change trying to breathe. "We're here," the officer said. The cruiser rolled to a stop in front of a small brick house at the end of the street. The porch light flickered, fighting the rain. Malik stared at the front door. "You can go," he said quietly, but the officer didn't move. "I think we need to talk." Malik turned, tired. "About what?" "You already said enough," the man's voice dropped. "About your father." Malik froze. "What about him?" The officer's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I was there that night," he whispered. "The night Marcus died." The air in the car changed. Rain hit the roof harder, like it knew the weight of what was coming. Malik's chest tightened. "You just said you were off shift." The officer nodded slowly. "I lied." His throat worked to find words. "We were both on patrol. Dispatch sent us to a traffic stop, one that went bad fast. Your dad wanted to calm the driver down, but the other rookie—" He swallowed. "The rookie panicked." Malik's eyes burned. "He shot him, didn't he?" The officer nodded, tears welling. "Right in front of me." I froze. "Your father fell and I—" He stopped, voice breaking. "I didn't move. I was supposed to protect him, and I didn't." Malik looked away, fists shaking. "So you watched him die?" "I tried to help, but it was too late. The rookie got fired, but I never forgave myself. Every call, every arrest, I heard his voice. Don't let anger pull the trigger for you." But tonight, I became the man he warned me about. The words hung in the dark, heavy as gunfire. Malik's breathing slowed. The hate in him shifted. Still there, but mixed with something else. "You owe him more than sorry," Malik said softly. The officer nodded, tears sliding down his face. "I know. That's why I pulled over when I saw you. I thought maybe God was giving me a second chance to do what I couldn't that night." Malik looked at him for a long time. "Then don't waste it." He opened the door and stepped out into the rain. The porch light glowed faint behind him as he said, "My father believed people could change." Prove him right. The door closed, leaving the officer alone with the storm and a truth that would never leave him. The officer sat in his cruiser long after Malik went inside. Rain tapped against the windshield in slow rhythm, each drop a memory he couldn't wipe away. He stared at the steering wheel, at his hands, the same hands that had done nothing 8 years ago and too much tonight. He whispered to himself, "Marcus, I failed you twice." He turned the key, but the car didn't move. His heart didn't let him. The next morning, Malik opened the door to find the same police car parked by the curb. The officer was standing in the rain again. No hat, no pride, just guilt written across his face. Malik frowned. "What are you doing here?" "Trying to be better," the officer said. "Can we talk?" Malik hesitated, then nodded. They walked to the porch, sitting on the old wooden steps where Malik used to watch his dad clean his badge on Sunday mornings. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, the officer said, "I filed a report about what I did last night. Told them everything. If I lose my job, I deserve it." Malik looked at him surprised. "Why would you do that?" He shrugged. "Because your father once told me a badge means truth, not power. I just forgot what it stood for." Malik looked down at the small pendant hanging from his neck. His dad's badge. "You remembered it now." The officer smiled faintly. "Your dad saved me once. Talked me out of quitting when I couldn't handle the pressure. Said, 'We don't wear this for us. We wear it for them.'" Malik's voice softened. "That sounds like him." The officer's eyes filled. "I couldn't save him, but maybe I can save what he stood for. Maybe I can start by helping kids like you, the ones we forget to protect." Malik nodded slowly. "Then do that." The officer extended his hand, not as a cop, but as a man. Malik looked at it for a moment, then shook it. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was something real. "Tell your father," the officer said quietly. "I'm finally listening." Malik smiled faintly. "He already knows." The rain began again, softer this time, almost like applause from heaven. "You said my dad saved you once," Malik said. "How?" The officer took a slow breath. "He showed me how to see people, not suspects." He looked down at his hands. "I lost that somewhere along the way. But I want it back." They stood in silence for a few seconds, rain dripping from the porch roof. "So what are you going to do?" Malik asked. The officer looked out at the street. Kids playing basketball at the corner, neighbors watching from porches. He said, "I'm starting something new. A community patrol. No guns, no power trips. Just people. Talking." Malik blinked. "Cops don't do that." The officer smiled faintly. "Your father did." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I found this last night. It's from the precinct archives. Your dad wrote it a week before he died. A proposal for youth mentoring." He handed it to Malik. The paper was old, water-stained, but the title was clear. "The Bridge Program, Connecting Police and Kids Before the Streets Do." Malik read it in silence. His throat tightened. He always said he wanted to start something like this. The officer nodded. "Then let's finish it." Over the next few weeks, he kept his word. He showed up, not in uniform, not with backup, just himself. He met the kids who avoided cops, the parents who didn't trust them, the teens who carried anger the way Malik once did. And every time someone asked why he was doing this, he said, "Because a black detective once told me, the only badge that matters is the one you earn in someone's heart." Malik helped him too, spreading the word, talking to kids who'd stopped believing in justice. They called it the Hayes Foundation, after his father. One evening, they stood in front of a small crowd in the community center. The officer looked nervous. Malik nudged him. "You got this." He stepped forward, speaking into the mic. 8 years ago, I watched a good man die. Last month, I almost became the same kind of cop that killed him. Tonight, I'm here to change that." The room was silent, listening. "This program isn't about police," he said. "It's about people, about learning to see each other again." Malik looked out at the crowd, faces of kids, parents, old men nodding slowly, and for the first time, he felt something his father always talked about. Hope. "You really think this will change anything?" The voice came from the back of the room. A man stood up, another officer, uniform crisp, expression cold. Malik turned toward him. The community center had been full of smiles a minute ago, but now the air grew tight. The white officer folded his arms. "You're making us look weak, Tom. Going soft on people who hate us." Tom, the same officer who'd hit Malik weeks ago, didn't flinch. "This isn't about weakness," he said. "It's about remembering why we wear the badge," the man scoffed. "You're holding hands with them now?" He nodded toward Malik. "Kid like that doesn't need a program. He needs a lesson." The room erupted. Parents shouting, some standing, others scared. Malik's jaw clenched. He stepped forward. "That kid," he said, voice steady, "is the reason you're here right now. Because he had the guts to stand up to the badge you hide behind?" The man smirked. "Watch your mouth, boy." Tom raised a hand. "That's enough," but Malik didn't stop. "My father died protecting this city, protecting men like you. And you want to call me a threat? Look in the mirror." The room fell silent again. Tom looked at Malik, proud but afraid of what would come next. The other cop stared for a long moment, then turned on his heel and left. The door slammed behind him. Later that night, Tom stood outside alone, leaning against his car. Malik joined him. "You didn't have to defend me," he said. Tom shook his head. "Yeah, I did. Because if I don't, I'm no better than I was that night in the alley." Malik looked at him. "You know this program's going to get harder, right?" "People won't change easy." Tom nodded. "Neither did I." They shared a quiet laugh, tired but real. The streetlights flickered above them. A few kids from the program walked past, waving. One of them shouted, "Hey, Officer Tom! You coming to the game tomorrow?" Tom smiled. "Wouldn't miss it," Malik grinned. "Looks like you've got fans now." Tom chuckled. "Guess your dad was right. One act of kindness can start a storm." They stood there in the soft glow of the streetlight. Two men who once met in violence, now building something their world didn't believe in yet. But they believed. And that was enough. "You ever wonder if he's watching?" Malik asked quietly. The night was calm now. The city lights shimmered over wet streets, and the sound of basketball echoed faintly from the park nearby. Tom looked up at the stars. Every day. They were standing outside the new mural wall, painted just hours earlier. It showed Detective Marcus Hayes, smiling in uniform, hand resting on a piano of blue and gold. Beneath it, the words glowed softly under a streetlight. "Justice is not color. It's courage." Malik ran his hand over the paint, the tears he didn't hide mixing with the drizzle still hanging in the air. "I used to hate this badge," he said. "Thought it only meant power and pain." Tom nodded slowly. "I used to use it that way." Malik turned toward him. "Not anymore." Tom smiled. Tired, humble. "No, not anymore." The next week, the Hayes Foundation opened its first youth center. No uniforms, no fear, just kids, music, and open doors. Malik stood on stage in front of the small crowd, wearing his father's pendant. Tom stood beside him, no badge, no rank, just a man trying to be better. Malik spoke softly into the mic. "My father used to say, 'You can't fix what you hate, only what you understand.' And tonight I understand him." The room clapped. Some cried. Tom looked down, wiping his eyes quickly, trying to hide it. Malik smiled at him. "You okay?" Tom nodded. "Yeah, just feels like he's here." Later, as the crowd left, Tom stayed behind, standing alone under the mural. He took off his badge, polished it once, and placed it on the small memorial table beneath Marcus's portrait. "You taught me twice, Marcus," he whispered, "once in life, and once through your son." He stepped back, looked up at the stars, and saw one flicker brighter. Maybe coincidence, maybe not. Malik walked up behind him. "He'd be proud," he said quietly. Tom smiled, voice breaking. "No, he'd be proud of you." They stood together, looking at the mural, a white cop and a black teen. Two lives that had collided in pain and ended in peace. Rain began again, soft. forgiving, like the world taking a deep breath. Moral of the story: justice doesn't start in a courtroom, it starts in the heart. Racism dies not when anger wins, but when understanding finally takes its place. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's the only sound that drowns out hate.